I'm curious to dive into long COVID. What do we really know about how the COVID virus affects the brain, and what do we know about long COVID?
Well, that's a really good one because it began to emerge, and doctors saw it and GPs began to see it. People ended up in hospital with these persistent symptoms. So it was a real thing. I saw with that. Secondly, then a lot of research begins, which is tremendous. And over the past year or so, great discoveries have been made about long COVID. And there's a few options as to why it happens. One is the virus persists and it's somehow in your body and it's burning away in the background. And all these symptoms are being driven by this low grade infection that's with you. Remember, the symptoms are very reminiscent of if anybody gets the flu. You'll feel bad for a few days. That's your own immune system actually
Yeah,
making you. It's called sickness behavior. And it evolved to get us away from the herd, by the way, to stop a virus spreading. Isn't that amazing? So
yeah,
you feel a bit depressed, you go into your cave, under your straw, you feel a bit lethargic, you can't eat and you lie around a bit, you have a fever, all these things, you get brain, you can't concentrate. That's an evolved response to an infection. But eventually you clear the infection and you get better. In this case, those symptoms persist. Now, one reason is the virus is there. The second is your immune system has fought a main battle against this virus and is now off kilter. And some of those immune troops continue to think there's a war going on. A
yeah,
bit like the Japanese soldier that came out of the jungle in 1960 or whatever, thinking there was still World War II was going on. So the immune system was off kilter. It's autoimmune then, actually, and that begins to attack your own tissues and cause some of the symptoms there. And one recent breakthrough in Trinity was, as you may have seen, the blood-brain barrier seems to be breached.
yeah,
And that's quite a dangerous thing because then many things can get from your blood into your brain. Your microbiome and your gut might leak things into your brain, and some of those symptoms could be driven by that. So that was an important finding we feel. And then
yeah.
literally last night, actually, I came across a paper at a big study in London. They've looked at loads of long COVID patients, and at last they've got biomarkers. They can measure parts of the inflammatory process being up in people with this condition. Two particular things. One is called IL-1, which I work on in my lab, actually, that seems to be up. I think I'll compliment. Now, that immediately suggests therapeutics. If you could lower those, you make it rid of some of these symptoms. So it's a complicated thing, but all this research is giving us new insights. And of course, very importantly, it'll go beyond COVID into things like Lyme disease or post-viral fatigue syndrome or chronic fatigue. All these things have been there for years. We've known for a long time infections can provoke this sort of long-term
Yeah.
symptomology, very debilitating to people. So our great hope here is one of the COVID dividends will be we learn from this in COVID. It'll apply to other post-infectious situations that are very debilitating for people as well. So it's really a good
Absolutely.
example of scientists getting stuck in and trying to figure what's going on.
I think at times we have all felt just a little bit depressed, lethargic, and all we wanted to do was go back to our cave and hide under our straw. For me, it's always been a particularly difficult time after lunch. I've always had chronically low blood pressure, so when I eat and the blood rushes to my stomach, I always feel dizzy, bloated, and completely demotivated. That is the reason why I started taking Magic Mind every single day directly after lunch. Magic Mind is a performance enhancing shot with your daily servings of vitamin C and D. The most exciting thing for me personally is that it also contains ingredients like ashwagandha, lion's mane, and Rhodiola rosea, which are really well studied ingredients for lowering stress and increasing focus in the doses that are actually in each of the bottles. Magic Mind has genuinely helped me push further into the evenings with focused and dedicated work, so at the end of the day I felt proud looking back at everything I had accomplished. Magic Mind are offering my viewers a whopping 48% off their first subscription, and I genuinely could not recommend them enough. Do we have any idea why it seems to affect some people and not others? And of the people that it seems to affect, it seems to be incredibly debilitating. But then some people seems to have walked away with, people are collecting COVID like they're Pokemon. Like I've
I
talked to
know,
people and they
yeah,
got it six,
exactly.
7 times.
Yeah.
And they don't seem affected at all. Do we have any sense for what the difference is there
Love to know that. This London study, they found six subtypes. Can you believe it? Probably six separate subtypes with different features.
of long COVID?
Yep. And if you've
Wow.
got
Okay.
subtype number one, you're inclined to have brain fog. If you have subtype number two, you got heart problem. There's a whole range of symptoms that seem to
Wow.
group. Now they're studying those people.
Yeah.
Now it could be genetic, remember, and it must be. There must be a genetic aspect because we're all slightly different. Our immune systems are, and you might have the wrong set of genes. You get a high dose infection, and bang, you develop long COVID. That's a likely scenario here.
Yeah.
I think the second thing is the dose of virus seems to be important. Um, some people a mild dose triggers it. In others, a high dose is needed. And again, this is there. So it's a big mystery why you see such a range
Yeah.
And why? It's like any disease, really. But like some people develop rheumatoid arthritis and some don't. Some develop long COVID and some don't. So it's a really important question to try and get to the bottom of, because that might tailor therapies. If there was 6 subtypes, you might have a drug for each subtype. There's
Yeah.
no point in giving drug number 1 to subtype number 3 because that's not the right sort of combination. That kind of thing should help us as well.
Yeah. Is quite this amount of variance is that a common feature of viruses like the post-viral syndrome? Is it common for it to impact such a small amount of people compared to how much it infected? Or is that a new sort of property of
No,
this
I think
virus?
so. Yeah, the flu is similar. So
Yeah.
some have flu persistent symptoms and some don't. So it does seem to be a feature of any infectious disease at a certain percent. It's quite high with long COVID, though. Like as much as 10-20% of people have some kind of
Yeah.
symptom. You wouldn't get that with flu. It's much lower percentages there. So there's something funny going on there. It could be because, of course, eventually, through our immune system being trained and learning, we'll all have similar levels of these things, ultimately, a small number of people developing it and not more people. It could be a consequence of being a new virus and our immune system is still getting used to it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And the more we are used to it, then it'll be less common. That's probably going to happen, we think. Because flu's been with us for a couple of thousand years, and Evan, that always amazes me that this is a new virus. It jumped into humans in the
Yeah.
year 2019. Remember, they reckon flu jumped in about 1,500 years ago. HIV, another famous virus, as we know, probably again 100 years ago that jumped. So you and I know about flu all our lives. It wasn't there once upon a time. It didn't affect humans. At some point.
Yeah. I just saw a case of an Olympian, I think it's a Dutch cyclist called Marlon Risser, I think is the name. But my strongest piece of evidence that long COVID is a thing, that this is
Yeah.
a cyclist, and you have to be very sick as a cyclist not to get on the bike. These are the hardest
Yeah.
people that exist, I think, in the world. So this person very unfortunately had to withdraw from the Olympics because of long COVID symptoms.
There you
You
have
know,
it. Exactly.
like there can't really be any argument on like, people having a lack of motivation or just feeling down or just being lazy when these are
Ah,
Olympic level cyclists that are,
exactly.
suffering these symptoms. These are people that are as hardworking physically as you
That's
can
right.
possibly get.
And Evan, remember, for a long time, people with chronic fatigue syndrome were accused of that kind of thing. And they were
Yeah.
always saying, "Look, this is a real thing here." So one big benefit, if that's the right word for it, but nobody wants to say a benefit comes from something nasty.
Yeah.
But one benefit from this is it's now being taken seriously across many diseases, not just in COVID.
If you enjoyed that short podcast clip, then be sure to click on the full podcast that you can watch here.